Dude, how about can you? I was just thinking about sitting in Belichick's office and listening to Mike Lombardi talk about how much football they know and how Mike's going to change everything, and we could turn it around. Bill, I'm the smartest guy in the world. You're the greatest coach, but I'm the smartest guy in the world. Like,
yeah.
How obnoxious do you think Mike Lombardi is?
It's crazy because so Lombardi was a GM, I don't know how many years ago.
Right.
I don't know how much college experience he has. I don't know when the last time he dealt with people are saying 18-year-old, right? You're dealing with an 18-year-old, like he's graduating. You're really dealing with a 16-year-old. You're dealing with these kids in high school when they're entering their junior year, because most players, most of them who don't do the whole like ceremony when they change the hat, most guys, they're committing when they're 16 to 17 years old. Like they're negotiating like when they're like barely have their license.
So let me ask you, how do you think this goes? Because I heard like Brady, Edelman, and Gronk. I saw the whole segment. They asked them, they're like, how do you think Bill's going to do in college football? And all of them are like, not good. And they started like imitating him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was funny.
It was hysterical. Like how I don't see how this works.
Here's the thing. I don't see how it doesn't. I don't see how it doesn't work. Think about it this way. There's so many different aspects of this, and I want to make sure we talk about this, but I was going to start Red Sox, but we're jumping off with this because Nick Saban did the exact same thing, was the exact same person. I don't see he was able to do it, and he was doing it in a different era. I think Saban got out because he didn't want to adjust to the new way of doing things. Plus, he was heading towards his 70s also. Bill is entering the arena having so much information about how this works, right? Think about all the coaches that are in college football that he could rely on for some sort of information. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, Brett Bielema at Illinois, Greg Schiano. The list goes on. And those are just the guys that I just quickly, Bill O'Brien at BC.
See, so the reason why I say that is, and I don't know if it's why Saban kind of was like, I'm good. The portal's changed everything. It's changed accountability. It's changed everything. Like we live in an age where starting whether you're 10, 12, 13 years old, and if you don't think your coach is playing you right or playing the right position, you go to a different club team. You go to your freshman year. If you don't make varsity, you go to a different high school. You go to a college now. And if you don't like freshman year, you're playing or the coach is too hard on you, you enter the portal. Like it's an out for everybody. It's no longer the parents that are just like little Johnny's the greatest and you're not playing them. Like the portal allows the guy to actually do it. So can Bill coach a guy hard? Like you play with him. Can he coach him hard? And for that kid to be like, fuck this.
Listen, just for the record, Bill will not be the first coach who tries to coach a kid hard, the kid doesn't like it and leaves. This happens all the time. I can't remember what the numbers were with the portal. First of all, the portal opened on Monday and guys are jumping in it like crazy. And the scholarship totals are down for colleges. So what used to be 120 some odd scholarships a team would have, now they have 105 because the money is going somewhere else. So they don't have enough money. So they're reducing the amount of scholarships each kid has. A kid decides to go in the portal. If he's not a name brand, a young guy or a guy with 2 years left who's a vet, right? It is a crapshoot. I would not mess with that portal unless I knew for sure I was getting picked up. So I do think about it. Like you say, how does it work? I looked at their schedule. Okay, North Carolina was 6-6 last year. So on their schedule, they open up with TCU, which will be a nationally televised game in some pigskin classic somewhere in Dallas, right? They'll do something like that. Then they have Richmond. They have the AC. Yeah. They don't play Miami. They don't play SMU.
Yeah, maybe.
They got Clemson. And they got in Syracuse is the only two ranked teams right now. And they also don't play Notre Dame, which is basically an ACC team. He may play in like the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl, maybe. But I don't see how he doesn't win 9 games. I don't see how he doesn't win 9 games.
I think that he's an amazing teacher. You know what I mean? And I think that the team will be better. I just wonder, like, how he teaches. It's no longer, a professional. You know what I mean? As you mentioned, it's like an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. And it's maybe he looks at a freshman as I'm going to ride this guy hard, and hopefully sophomore, junior year, he figures this thing out. He wakes up sophomore year to find out the guy's in the portal because he didn't like the way Bill rode him. You know what I mean? As far as coaching him up. So then all of a sudden Bill's, oh, okay. So he just lost a player. You know what I mean? I wonder how much the guys are going to stick with him, the grinders. And maybe that's a good spot for him because it's not exactly the biggest 5-star recruits. You know what I mean? The guys that have been just given everything their entire high school career. But you got to find those grinders that are going to be willing to be coached by Bill Belichick. And some of those guys, they may want it, but eventually they're just like, I can go somewhere else.
You're right. You're right, because there are some issues with it because, one, he's signing a 3-year deal. So let's say I'm a freshman. I'm going to redshirt my first year. I'm going to be a redshirt freshman. And then by the time I'm a redshirt sophomore, that may be his last year. And then you're going to force your son on me. That's going to be my head coach. Those things, there's a massive amount of issues.
You went through it as a parent.
I've been through it multiple times.
You went through it as a parent. Your son is being recruited by Bill Belichick. Okay, your first thought is awesome. It's Bill Belichick. Your second thought as a parent is Bill here for a year and going back to the NFL? And is going to be an entirely new coaching staff? Will they like my son? That is an enormous part of recruiting. You're giving your son to this guy. Now, granted, the portal's changed a little bit from when you and I went to school. But you have to believe this shock and awe that Bill's actually in college, not in the NFL.
I know.
Is this a one-year wonder to get back to the NFL, to set up his kid at UNC and let Mike play GM the rest of his life, Lombardi? So I don't know. I think it's
here's the other aspect of it. Here's the other thing about recruiting, and this as well, is the other schools that you are competing against are going to lay so many landmines around you because you're all going to be going for the same recruits. You're all going to be going for the same portal kids. Like the top tier, which is what UNC is now, the top tier guys, you're all going for the same guys.
Yeah.
So if I'm Dan Lanning at Oregon, if I'm Dabo Sweeney, I'm sitting there going, man, I'm not going anywhere. You want to play for this guy? He's 73 years old. Like, they're going to be ripping him, tearing him apart. Yeah. They're going to be ripping his credibility. Then they're going to be working on the parents and the moms. And a lot of these guys, and this is just the truth, a lot of single parent homes where the father doesn't exist, right? The mother's raising the kid, the high school coach is raising the kid. They got numbers to back this up. So you're going to send your kid to UNC with the hope that Bill is like a mentor, like he's a good father figure and he's nurturing. He's tough, but he's also nurturing, and he has your son's best interest at heart. That's what parents want to hear. Now, I don't think that would be my approach. I don't think that's Bill's approach, though. I think he's going to go in,
but it's not even long term. Even if he doesn't lead the NFL, like in a year, right? Like, it's how long is he going to coach? What, we got Joe?
Well, just call it 3 years. Call it 3 years. Call it 3. Say
I'm not even a graduate yet. If I'm coming in as your first recruit, like, I'm not even. By the time I graduate, you're gone. I know there's no guarantees. I understand it could be gone. I think it's a tough sell. It'd be really interesting. And the other thing, it's risky. And I know Bill just doesn't look at it that way. He just looks at it as, I want to coach some more, so I'm doing this. But what if he doesn't turn that around? What if he does it? Just ends like, oh, it's so sad.
That's the most unlikely thing to happen in my book. Now, he may lose to.
He definitely wins. They definitely compete for an ACC title the next 3 years.
Oh, absolutely. They were 6-6 this year.
Yeah.
6-6. The ACC title was between Clemson and SMU, and Clemson won, and they had 3 losses. So here's the thing. If I was North Carolina, to your point, because that's a great point, I would have signed him to a 6-year deal. And I would have said 6 years. So when I get my freshman class, at least the first 2 years of my recruiting class, my foundation, my base, those guys are at least convinced that I'm sticking around, right? Like, I'm going to see you through to the year. Like, I would have, that's the first, when you announce that you only have a 3-year deal, you literally cap yourself with who you can recruit.
So let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
You're more like familiar with the window of college football recruiting. Is year 1 already tough? He's already lost a year of recruiting class. So really it's year 2. He's going to bring in his freshman that he can spend all year looking at. Like,
they already have some young quarterback, some freshman quarterback, top 15 quarterback in the nation that has already agreed to play. This is before Bill even signed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So this year's recruiting class won't really be his. he will have in a 3-year deal really only 2 years to go and look at kids and bring them in. I'm sure this quarterback's great. Bill, he might look at it and say, kid can't play at Foxborough High School. I would have taken this kid. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the 3-year deal, he really has 2 years to bring in his own real guys.
Okay, so now here's the new. I don't know if you know this or not. So the NIL collective at UNC was low. It was not a top tier program. They weren't funneling a lot of money into that program. It was capped at $4 million. It's at 20 now. It's at $20 million. So you can go out just like you would as a free agent, right? So the portal just opened on Monday. It's been open for 3 or 4 days, and I already know of guys that are just clamoring to sign with him for that 1 or 2 years. He's gonna build a roster, a 3-year roster, and then he's gonna and that's it. And then you can leave again. But I feel like the money there's gonna be, in order to protect against guys leaving, the language is gonna be shady based on, hey, I signed you to a $10 million deal for 3 years. Listen, if you leave, like XYZ is gonna happen. But let me ask you this. If young Mason is a football player and you're a former pro, you played in the league, how good education is, how important coaching is. Coaching.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want him to at least get a little taste of what that is like? Like what that is. Hey, his staff is going to be awesome. He's going to have a great staff. Okay, lots of former pro coaches out there. He's going to be running the show as the CEO. He's going to be managing all the other people underneath him, which he should be doing.
Yeah.
And he's not going to suddenly be like all warm and fuzzy. No, you know what you're going to get with him.
I think it's a draw, but I also would sit there and say, let's hear some other people out, because I guess I compare it to, I just started working like my kid. I'm his coach, right? He's 15 years old. I'm one of the coaches. I've been coaching a lot of these youth kids at 10, 11, 12 years old. I played in the big leagues, but here's the bottom line. Like when I start grabbing a 12-year-old and put him in the cage, there's actually somebody that's been doing it for years, working at that age, that's a lot better at it than I am, teaching hitting, because he's used to dealing with what 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, what that path looks like. And I guess I'm probably better working out with like college kids and really getting the detail of hitting, or pros and get to the detail of hitting. So I would sit there and say, as great as Bill Belichick is, we know the history of him in the NFL, this coach over here has been in this college for 5 years and is really good at it and understands the kid, understands a 17-year-old kid, a 19-year-old kid, has a grasp of everything, rather than Bill Belichick just going into this year going, I've talked to a lot of people. I think he'll be successful. Don't get me wrong, but there's a chance that someone who isn't as good as a coach as Bill is better at coaching college kids than he is. You know what I mean?
Also, it's all about stacking the deck, Lou. It's all about getting the best players. Coaching is great, but you can have a crappy subpar coach and then they get the best players. Yeah. Those players they're like a human eraser. They just fix all your issues. So I do agree with you. I do think it's going to be a lot harder than he thinks, because other coaches, it is as cutthroat, it is as nasty. So forget about dealing with a fan base, or forget about dealing with an owner. Forget about the owner and the owner's kid.
Alumni.
You're dealing with the alumni, and there's hundreds and thousands of them, and a lot of them got a lot of money, and a lot of them got a lot of influence, and a lot of them may not like the way you sound during your press conference. They may not like what you said. Now, I'm sure Bill has insulated himself from that. I'm sure part of the deal was you can't do this, you can't do that. Don't show up in my office. Don't ask me to come shake hands. Don't ask me to go to some fundraising event. I'm coaching football.
Yeah, that's the other part too. Don't you think college football coaches are more involved in a community? They're more personable, or they're the face of the community. Bill getting up there because they just lost a 1-point game to Bill O'Brien. I don't think it's going to come up. Dogs are going nuts. I don't think it's going to come off too great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're I don't know. That personality is fine in Boston when you win, but the atmosphere in a college town, I think they want their coach to be more part of it.
Here's what's going to happen. All right, so the coaches get hired in the winter. Basketball season is going on. What always happens, and I remember Chip Kelly, it wasn't Chip Kelly, it was the coach at LSU.
Mike Kelly.
LSU, remember? So he leaves Notre Dame. Yeah, and suddenly he develops a Southern accent at
Down
the
here,
basketball game. So Bill will be at a North Carolina basketball game. They will roll him out there, and he's going to have to say something. Like that's what's part of it. You're going to have to deal with the fans, like the student body.
Yeah.
It is going to be a lot harder than he imagines. But, and the other thing that he's going to have to do, and this is what Deion Sanders had to deal with, okay? And this is what Nick Saban has talked about, and other high-level pro-type style coaches have talked about. You get into the locker room, you start kicking guys off the bus. You start like weeding out the weak links. You start weeding out the problem child. You start looking at film going, that's not my guy. How do I get him out of here? So it's a dirty freaking business when you really think about like how they get guys to leave. Hey, okay, no one can wear black socks. I'm a coach. I want to get rid of this kid. I see him wearing white socks. I have cause. You're off the team. Hey, no music being played. No phones. I see a guy with a phone. You're off the team. All this is stuff. Like, you have to be real creative to wield out your roster because you want your own guys in there. So you're going to have a mix of holdovers, and you're probably going to have 25 new guys on that team, at least 25. That's a given. You got $20 million to spend. You're going to have to spread it out to build a team.
Yeah, and I'm just envisioning like the night before UNC Clemson, right? For the ACC title, there's a pep rally. And he's
a bonfire.
No, you know what I mean? And he's at the podium. I don't see it. You know what I mean? I don't see him. I don't see the crowd screaming and hollering and fired up. He's just going to be like snorting and being like, well, that's a good team. And we respect them all three phases. And we're going to do our best. And people like, and just sitting there like wanting to get excited for the game. And they're drunk and they're hanging out. And the next thing you know, here comes Bill just snorting. And they just walk home. Oh, okay.
Let me ask you this. Is it fair to assume that there can be two different versions of Bill? There can be pro football, NFL Bill, and college Bill. Like, why would we not give him the benefit of the doubt in order that he would change the way he is? We saw him last year at the Army-Navy game, putting the helmet on when they had the game here at Gillette. All he's doing is media and being playful and being and almost like endearing in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like he started all over.
He's that good. I think a lot of people, and probably not give him enough credit, because when you're as good at the job as he has been, you adapt. It's just that this is a big one. So I think a lot of people are curious to see how it plays out. So I was shocked by it, really. Just shocked.
I know.
Stunned.
Same. I wasn't buying it at all.
No. I thought it was his way of throwing it out to the universe that, in case you were wondering, I'm coaching next year. And if it's got to be at UNC, it is. But this is just throwing it out there at every team in the league that I want to coach. And then he jumped.
Yeah.
And you're like,
wow. Yeah, that's Bill. We hit that off the top. So right before we get to Crochet, listen, I just want to tell everybody to like and subscribe. We're almost at 25,000 subscribers, Lou. Nice. I got to get to 100 before Christmas. No, it's not going to happen. Anyways, let's get to 50. Last thing, Garrett Crochet. Yeah. Are you happy now?
Yeah.
Are you happy? Did they make everybody happy now with this guy?
Yeah, I think they just calmed everybody down a little bit, because it was, nobody thought they were going to get Soto. And then it was like Frida Burns, got to get Frida Burns or Snell. Snell jumps on it early, goes to LA because everybody wants to. He doesn't want to deal with what happened last year with him. He went all the way to the end. And you're like, okay, got to get one of the two. Freed goes. And now you start panicking because all there is Burns. Then you start hearing they're not the favorites. But when you get a guy like Crochet, he like ceiling wise, I think Burns is probably the biggest consistent what you're going to get from guy, and Freed's kind of in that category a little bit. To me, Crochet's more like Snell, like higher ceiling, can be better. He's obviously hasn't done it as long as the other guys, but it calmed everybody down. He's the guy that I wanted from the beginning.
Crochet was?
Yeah, like in the trade, he was, because I just figured they would sign a free agent, but then they got to trade for this guy because he's, as I've talked about it many times, that people get confused by it. I called him a pig and nobody understood what it meant.
It's like a good thing.
He's filthy. You know what I mean? Just like a pig. But he's a monster. Like, he's swing and miss, absolute monster. The guy's Tariq Skubal, before Tariq came on the scene this year. Like, that's where he's at right now. They're still not done, but they finally went out and they made that big trade. And they still got, I think, another trade coming. And hopefully some more free agents coming as well.
And the thing about Crochet, too, you said he called him a pig. He's a monster. 6'6", 245. He's basically Gronk, throwing about 99 to 105 and just pushing it through your face. I'm curious about his injury. And plus, he already had Tommy John surgery, right? So you figure he got that out of the way.
Yeah.
And there is this aspect of Chris, what I think would be like a Chris Sale 2.0. Chris Sale was 28 when he got traded here from the White Sox, and here comes Crochet at 26 with controllable years. And you're like, all right, that's pretty good. So they've got to be really happy. So it's Crochet, it's Bayo, it's Hawk, it's Crawford, and they need one more, right?
They had Giolito coming back.
Giolito off the surgery, yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be ready, you know what I mean, in April. So they've come up from the very beginning saying they want to. So whether that is Giolito may not be ready in April, maybe a guy like Cutter Crawford, maybe he's involved in the deal. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But there were some rumors last night that diving back in with the Seattle guys. I've heard some things that they've talked to Pittsburgh about a couple other young starters. The obvious answer is just go sign Corbin Burns. Save your prospects and use it for something else if you need to. But no, they got Crochet, and there was some concern, like you mentioned, of Tommy John. See, the guy came right to the big leagues from the draft. So he burned up big league time while on the injury list. He got 2 years of service while actually in Tommy John. That's why he only has 2 years left. And by missing 2 years and turning him into a starter, the innings last year were limited, but some of the numbers are through the roof. So I think he jumps right in as like their number one, as their best starter that they have. But you want to go all in, you go get a guy like Burns. You dive into the thing is now you can dive into, say, Jack Flaherty and Walker Buehler and be fine with it because you've got Crochet. If you didn't and you were like, our big guy is Jack Flaherty, who for the first time in his career had a really good year last year. Well, I shouldn't say his first 2 years in the big leagues, but that was like 6 years ago. You can't sell anyone on that. Or Walker Buehler is going to get back to who he was 3 years ago in LA as your big signing. You can't sell people on that. You can sell people on this kid.
How do you think Chaim Bloom feels right now, knowing that now they're spending money?
Yeah, and we still don't know like the limitations. I think we know that there were definitely some that he wasn't allowed to spend, and they wanted him to build the system up. Yeah, I'm sure he's just these two guys that went, Teal and Montgomery, for Crochet were the first round picks the last 2 years. So because your team's bottomed out, you were able to get these true prospects and bring Crochet in. You know what I mean? I don't know. We've talked about him many times, and yeah, he was limited, but there were a lot of missteps along the way. He wasn't fired for doing what they asked him to do. You know what I mean? I think the trade deadlines were a disaster. I think the word around the league was they couldn't make a deal with him. I think he had lost some of that around the league talking to GMs. I knew personally of 3 or 4 teams that just wouldn't take his calls because they were tired of dealing with him. So people want to say what they want about Chaim was fired for doing exactly that. And I wish him all the best. I think he's a good dude. I really do. And I think he learned a lot. And hopefully this time around in St. Louis, he'll be better because I'm rooting for him. But he did. I think he'll even admit he made some mistakes here in Boston.
All right, Lou. That's Thursdays with Lou Merloni.
Go get me some knowledge.